There's so many untold stories to be discovered in the Pokemon community, and they're just right there on Reddit, Twitter, forums, comments. Like, people have had crazy experiences in Pokemon, and especially play Pokemon, but no one's allowed to talk about cheating that's infesting Pokemon on TCG and VGC, because then it makes the scene look bad, and then it makes all the bad actors look bad, but bad actors and their child audiences that they've manipulated, nope, they all have to go on the defense and then defend cheating and say it's not happening, and whatever else. So, first regionals at Knoxville and cheated against. Here's my story. Now, I was thinking Knoxville, a year ago, that sounds familiar. Disabled player penalized at Pokemon regional event because of a judge mistake. We also had more Pokemon VGC champions disqualified. So this was as we had the uptick of the 2023 hack check for the Pokemon Bank flag whatever thing. So yeah, this guy got disqualified. Also previous champion. It's almost like every top player's cheating and you can't win without hacking. And then also just TCG is rotten, and we've been covering that. Michael Pramwat cheating on stream, admitting cheating, never getting punishments, toward only getting punished outside of like America or like direct TPCI stuff. He had to go to the South America, the Latin International Championships to actually receive a punishment where they're not corrupt, and then other cheaters and TCG cheaters and tons of stories like that. So, what happened here? Also, first regionals, great experience. This is also why I can't recommend play Pokemon. Judges are too timid. Play Pokemon's corrupt. There's no enforcement of cheating to begin with, so they're not even like looking to ban cheaters or looking to punish cheaters to make to where like you don't have to deal with them so much. And then the community is just rotten and toxic anyways. And this mirrors my first experience at a regionals back in 2012, where I got timer stalled for all my losses because my opponents couldn't beat me, and the judges didn't do anything about it. And there was also collusion where someone I beat in the previous round would just walk up to my table. I was at top table at VGC regionals because I was the GOAT and still am the GOAT. They just watched him and said, he's running tank, he's going to be setting up stockpile, timer stall him from the beginning. I called a judge and like explained all that, and then he's just like, and I can't sit here and babysit your game. So yeah, I made my comeback to the Pokemon TCG this past weekend in Knoxville after a 23-year hiatus. Dude hadn't played since 2000. So that makes sense. Like the initial Pokemon hype, everyone in school, in your class, had Pokemon cards. Some immediately fell out of it. Some stuck for life. Some just maybe transitioned and didn't buy any more Pokemon cards or something. Got the bug again after my son got into Pokemon and started to accumulate an absurd amount of unorganized cards. So that's also another big thing. Like, our parents growing up in the 90s as a 90s kid, they weren't getting into Pokemon that much. Sure, adults still played. Sure, a lot of parents were supportive of it, but it wasn't like what we're seeing now where it's like, oh, Pokemon's been around long enough to where like you grow up with Pokemon and you have a kid, and then you introduce your kid to Pokemon, and now you're attending events together, or your kid gets you back into Pokemon. It's like, that's some cool stuff right there. It's like I hadn't missed a beat, picked up on the new rules, V-Pokemon supporter, whatever, Pokemon TCG Go live. I was able to verse myself in the current meta. Why not jump back into it for a regional event? That's what regionals are for. Regionals are the event where you just show up, where it's like, yo, I feel skilled, I feel like I've developed something, let's see how I stack against players in the relative area, mostly the state, and then some out-of-town ringers and sharks and stuff. I thought I was going into this with no expectations. After one sleepless night, 2 mornings of replaying what happened in my head, I've come to realize I was expecting fair play at the least. Same brother. And that's kind of like the weird thing about a lot of these stories is like, people that don't think they've been cheated against in TCG, if they've gone to multiple events, even locals, they're just ignorant of the cheating, or they realize like after the fact, like, wait a second, that's something. Or they hear a story like this. You know, that's why these stories need to be told. They need to get publicity and not covered up by the bad actors and evil people in the Pokemon community that are cheating themselves. See, it's the cheaters that are trying to cover up the cheating so they can keep cheating against you because they want you ignorant. But yeah, I thought I was going to encounter fair play. I got soft stalled in my first match, won it. Second match was like an even game that didn't have someone that was cheating against me, won it. That's how I ended up at top table. And then that's where it started to unravel because my team was too strong and everyone was talking, and all the, like, back in 2012, there wasn't like a VGC scene, but all the friends and all the quote-unquote top players, you know, were looking out for each other, started leaking my strats, and then judges didn't care. Even though in 2012, the rules actually said no timer stalling in VGC, explicitly. So the phrase, silence is violence, comes to mind, and it was certainly self-sabotage in my case. That's another thing, like, you need these stories so you need to know what to do. If anything is ever suspicious, ever, TCG, VGC, whatever, call a judge every time. That's why judges are there. And a big thing and a fun thing is practicing your judge call. Raise your hand, call it. That's how you do it. I figured the least I can do is share my experience and let it be known that Pokemon has its spoils. Here's a recap of what happened. Round 8. We were both supposedly at the cutting edge of making day 2 with 4 wins, 1 tie, 2 losses. So this is a win and in potential on round 8 for dude's first regionals. Huge. Got back into it hard, came out with skill. Lugia versus Lost Box Kyogre. End of game 1, seemingly had the upper hand, ending my turn with a Marnie and Knockout to have 1 prize left with multiple outlets to take on the following turn. I know Lost Box can change this quickly, but the game was strongly in my favor. I'd previously taken some of his draw power. Mistake 1. I realized my biggest error the entire time, and perhaps the entire tournament. That's another thing, is like, if you're like, maybe that other loss was I getting cheated against. Did I get slow played in that other game? Was that why I got forced into a draw? You know, like, a lot of other stuff, like, slow play is huge, but also, people manipulate cards, and we've seen it on stream. Like, we saw Michael Pramwatt stacking. There was also other coverage where it's like people on stream are making gameplay errors, and it's like, no, that's just like straight up cheating and not even an accident with how they went through the process. Was not counting the key cards in my opponent's discard pile and lost zone. And there's also a lot of stories of people going, wait, I wreck online. I know it's like a lot of kids and maybe not super competitive players and as competitive of an environment as like, you know, 3+ wins at a regionals or something. But why do I just keep winning more online? That's because all the game actions are accounted for. Now, there's also like personal things where you can misplay and the game like takes care of that for you, which is a lot more difficult in live. So there is more mental power that's needed. And that's another thing. Like, you have to go to multiple regionals and multiple events to understand, like, oh, it's just a completely different beast mentally. So a lot of things to take away from just any of these kinds of experiences. But yeah, also the reason why you lose a lot more is because cheaters. You can't get cheated against online. That's why it would be interesting if we actually saw, like, that's why I want to see more shift to online play, where it's like, oh, no in-person regionals for Pokemon VGC. All your teams have to be uploaded, and it's just all, like, the international challenges, but just local. Because that's what Japan does. They have you qualify through online tournaments, and then you show up for the nationals, and then top placements at nationals get you into worlds. This championship point system and in-person events is just awful. And it's also a lot better for TCGs because you actually have randomization. You can't get stacked against. You can't have players cheat cards and stuff. So there's a lot more integrity. This particular game, I did ask for a tally on Mirage Gates. It was only after replaying things in my head that one of the cards that was abused in the game, I kept count of the cards. That's like so much brain where it's like, okay, I have to keep track of every card my opponent's played, how many times they've brought it back, how many times they've played it, and the sequence to get to that point. Because, like, people, they'll just cheat cards on. I could have confidently called out the cheating when some of these cards were being played more than they should have. Exactly, where it's like, wait a second, it seems like he's playing that too much, or he shouldn't have had that access to that card, and 1, 2, 3, 4, wait a second. And that's when we call a judge, and then the judge looks at it, reverses the game state, and goes, oh, you're cheating. Game loss. Get out of here. Final turn, somehow replenishes his hand to 10, 12 cards, gets his deck down to 3 cards, 30-minute game, resources exhausted, previously targeted the draw power for single prizes. The lack of what I can recall leaves much to be desired. His preceding actions confirm cheating. Not paying attention to his hand card count. He was so fidgety and quick with his cards the entire game, I could barely keep up with what he was actually playing versus what he was looking and sorting through. And that's when you call a judge. You like, because at least the thing is, like, if you call a judge, the judge might already catch the cheating, and then that person gets a game loss, or depending on like how much proof is needed, or it's like, oh, it could have been an accident, so you get 2 prize cards and then you win the game anyways. It's gonna put them on alert, and it shows like you're paying attention. So that's why, like, even if you don't think or know for certain the player's cheating, but they're playing a little sus, call a judge. Just calm them down, or instruct them. Be like, hey, you not like shuffle your hand every 5 seconds while drawing cards, while like in the middle of an effect you're shuffling your hand. I'm trying to keep up with the game state. And if they say no, that's when you call a judge, and then the judge will tell them to calm down. And then maybe they will. So at one point, he was looking through his discard pile. I saw him swiftly take a card there to his hand. Bro, like, that's like when you need to be like, what effect was that? I began to ponder if I missed him play something, or if he was taking it back. I mean, once you play a card, like, it's not like he discard went, wait, no, you don't get to undo like that. Shuffles through his hand again. Couple other things, back to looking through his discard pile, takes another card. At this point I was trying to process and make sense of what happened. Is this really happening? What am I missing? I didn't want to falsely accuse someone cheating. You gotta. That's how rotten Pokemon is. Also, you have to think about the game state. Round 2, maybe someone just still trying to get into their groove, and they're a little fidgety. Maybe it's their first regionals as well, or something like that. Win and in. And the thing is, he has nothing to lose from the sound of the game state, that he had to cheat multiple times to bring the game back because you had such an advantage and so many outs to secure the game. And if it's a win and in, he loses and he's out the tournament, or he can just take the risk for the DQ and then he's out the tournament anyways. Now, penalty guidelines do get interesting. Warning, flashbang. And I was trying to like look in the rules, see like, oh, is there like a room for a major unsporting conduct, so it's just a match loss? Could have been attempts to distract the opponent or something like that. What about gameplay errors? Severe is just going to be a game loss, but even then, that doesn't really have any effect. Like, cheating is pretty well defined. It's like, oh, if it seems like the person is cheating, they're cheating, straight to disqualification. And I wonder how many stories go against this, where it's like, oh, my opponent got a match loss, even though, like, the judge acknowledged it was cheating, but didn't think it was, like, severe enough cheating to DQ this person from the tournament. And then, like, he got, like, a strong warning on top of it, like, okay, we catch you doing this again, then you're DQ'd, when, like, no, it's just straight to disqualification for acting upon game information from an external source, intentionally drawing extra cards or taking cards from the discard pile, arbitrarily changing the counters in play, stacking, and then, like, some other stuff. Custom firmware on the video game console, Lamau, and then account sharing for Pokemon Unite, which is a story I covered recently. But yeah, like, and these may include. So any other things that are cheating, such as, like, repeating card effects deliberately, anything to gain an advantage. Like, it's right here. Players who choose to cheat to gain advantage over their opponent, in all instances, must be disqualified. And usually a judge is, like, really good at figuring it out, because, like, you can tell a new player that's kind of, you know, iffy on what they're doing, and maybe they make a misplay, and that's where the gameplay errors come into play. But then, like, if you reverse the game state, it's like, wait, you just ended up with 2 extra cards. That doesn't happen if you're just, like, accidental. Also, wait, I've seen you before at the last regionals. Or you're that top player that got top 16 at, you know, 2 regionals ago. You know better than this. Get out of here. Get disqualified. And there is a risk on a disqualification. In the event of disqualification, responsibility of head judge to submit a full and thorough report to Pokemon organized play. It's funny how, like, Makani got a report on him for just, like, doing nothing wrong. And then DQs and VGC just don't seem to have any effect on the player. This report should detail all factors that contributed to the decision, as well as names, player ID numbers of all professors who were present. Once complete, filed and attached via customer support, and then disqualification report is submitted when issued at a championship series event. Failure to submit a thorough report, I wonder how many times that happens, may result in disciplinary action, ineligibility to hold leadership roles at future events. We've already seen, like, an extreme mismanagement of tournament organizers countless times when it comes to Pokemon, TCG, and VGC. Nice. So yeah, a DQ gets filed. It doesn't necessarily mean that you get banned or anything. Also, if, like, your first offense, it's just on record, so don't cheat again. But hey, you got your top 4 finish that you needed anyways, so that's happening. And then, you know, maybe you try to shark it to where you only get, like, gameplay errors instead of DQs. Who knows? Cheating is very complex, and Pokemon's not harsh enough on it. That's the story here. Didn't speak up, wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt and that I wasn't keeping up. In this sequence, he plays Recycler, Kyogre, Mirage Gate, Ordinary Rod, 2 energies. Makes sense of what cards he may have taken from discard pile to ensure and increase his chance of victory. So that goes back up to, I wasn't paying attention to the key cards that were going on. So it's like, wait a second, another Recycler? Another Mirage Gate? There was no effect that could have pulled these cards from his discard, or the extra energy he needed? Who knows? Starts to make sense of what cards he may have taken. Now here comes the icing on the cake. Diverts attention to my bench, asking what Radiant Charizard does. So he leans over table, as if he's placing his hands on the table to take a closer look, placing electric energy from his hand on top of the deck. I knew it was an electric energy, because as much as I tried not to look the whole game, he's not very good at moving, shuffling, face-down cards, and I can see under them. I call him out on this as everything is beginning to make sense. I saw that. He became nervous and defensive, which is always a sign of cheating. Oh, I wasn't trying to do that. I was just setting it aside. The rest of his hand was in the other hand. Stake 3, I didn't call a judge. That's the moral of the story. So yeah, like, this dude's doing so much wacky stuff. So I mean, like, that right there, if the judge can just disassemble, it's like, wait a second. Yeah, Like, why are you one less card in your hand than what you should have from all of the plays that you've made? Why, like, what's the incentive of putting that electric energy on top of your deck? And like, why was he leaning over to look? Because like, you don't, like, anytime, I think there might be some kind of like rules, or at least a judge will be like, no, you can't put your hands on the play field and then lean to like look at something. That's why you can always just ask your opponent, like, hey, can I see the card? So asking is a form of distraction. So at very least, it's major unsporting for a game loss or something. So yeah, stake 3, didn't call a judge. Such awe at what happened, kept running a sequence of the game, trying to make sense of it. 3 chances. On the 3rd time, I only confronted my opponent, and then I left it to highly increased RNG. He would not flip the energies needed to take his last 2 prizes, after putting the energy on top. Now, I don't know the legality or judge interpretation of using information that you shouldn't have access to, but like, if the opponent's playing sloppy, you know, if they put their hand down and show it to you, you get to play off of that information. And if the judge come over to say, yeah, I saw his hand, it's like, it's not like you were peeking. It's like, if the opponent is being really sloppy with that, and they're like shuffling their deck facing you or something, because that's just their habit on how they shuffle, or even then you say, I know it was an energy when it was the only card he put in his other hand, and then placed his hand on his deck to lean over to look at my play field. So yeah, highly increased RNG and all that other fun stuff. It's only after a couple turns into match 2 that I asked a passing judge for another set of eyes on the game, as things were starting to settle in as to what happened. Timed out game 2, took the round after winning game 1. Yep. And that's another good reason to call a judge on like slow play for like round shenanigans. I tried to show some compassion, give him benefit of doubt, to explain to him without making any accusations as to why I made the judge call. Maybe I misperceived this, and then you don't have to explain it and apologize to the cheater or anything like that. Anyone that's not cheating is going to be chill about it. And again, it's ignorance of how many ways you get cheated. The different ways that people are cheating to avoid detection from all that stuff, the sneaky little moves they make, and all of those other things. He got defensive and says, I hate it when people call me a cheater. Well, it's because you're a cheater, bro. And as we've seen, like, so many times in so many different ways, it's always the people that are saying, like, oh, it's not cheating. Well, you're the one genning your Pokemon too. Wolfe didn't cheat. Oh, you're just a cheater as well. And then, oh yeah, I didn't use walls. I'm just better. Get good. And then the people that are like, yeah, that person with the aimbot didn't cheat. Oh, it turns out they got banned on Steam for cheating. So the judge stopped the conversation, instructed we go our ways. I didn't even get to the part where I actually called him on putting the card back on the deck. He hates it when and insults me and all that fun stuff. Judge realized I wasn't getting emotionally distressed like my opponent. Took time to hear me out on the actions that caused me to ring the alarm. I call these things out in the moment, so they can rewind the turn and verify the cards played. But at the point the loss was cemented, the moment we moved on to the next game. Said he would keep an eye on the player, but I cannot say if he actually did. Later learned called cupping cards. Understand that's what he was doing. Looked like illusions or magic tricks, setting down the discard pile with one hand as his forearm crosses over in front of the face down cards in his hand. He was putting the taking card with the rest of his hand, picking it up, and all those cards at the same time. And never mind, he throws it away. To my opponent, if you're here, it's okay, I forgive you. Why does everyone just want to defend and sympathize and support cheaters in the Pokemon community? Saw you on Market Square Sunday, chose not to approach you as I was with my friends and family. Didn't feel like it would have been safe there the way our conversation ended. I wanted to apologize, put you in that state of distress, but I decided not. Jesus Christ. Wish you best of luck. No, this dude, this scumbag, deserves a ban for cheating in a children's game. Bro asked what Radiant Charizard does. That would be an interesting judge call, where like, if it's like an obvious thing where it's like, wait a second, he's trying to distract me, that's when you call the judge. You don't give them the chance to lean into your play field, to cup into their discard pile or deck, or do things with their hand to figure out what a common meta card does, if not like one of the most commonly known cards in the game, or to distract you by looking at your bench and then handing him the card or something like that. Like, hey, can you hand me the Charizard? I'll just go ahead and see what it does. Anything like that. That's when you just like have the judge there for that situation as well. At least we got a little bit. You're too nice at the end of your post. They're that desperate. There's no way they haven't done it before and won't continue to do it. So I wouldn't be forgiving or saying sorry to them. Cannot forgo seeing the person. The thing is, if you're cheating like that, you're deliberately inflicting harm on another person to steal the opportunity of prize money and ruin their event. Because, like, this dude, like, how do you... Like, someone takes an action against you that causes you to lose sleep, causes you to replay the event over and over and over. It gives you a little bit of that trauma. It makes you sick thinking about what happened. And then you're just like, that's just another person on the side of the table. No, that dude's evil. You have to be evil to cheat. He even got the downvote. Oh my Christ. Yeah, cool. Seemed pretty easy to take advantage of. And that's also a lot of players. Like, don't be the ignorant kid going to a regionals thinking everything's cool, TCG or VGC. Another thing is how when you get to that regionals competitive level, people talk and know each other. Hate this happened to you. Our matchup was in round 3, one of my favorites of the day. Enjoyed chatting with you throughout the event. Sucks that any tournament is going to attract dishonest people like that. I'll see you again, Oliver. I've dealt with players like this in Magic and can confidently say when people say, I hate when people call me a cheater, it's a shot. It's to put you on the defensive. You've upset them. You're in the wrong. You must explain yourself. Boom. Social engineering. Here comes the icing on the cake. Diverts my attention to my bench asking what Radius Charizard does. Come on now. So yeah, you just got to do it. You got to halt the play and bother a judge. That's what they're there for. If you're having a hard time keeping up with their plays, ask them to slow down. If they agree and then don't slow down, ask them to announce their moves. This will force them to slow down, or at least take the time to say the action. If they don't announce their plays, then ask them what they're doing after every card play. Eventually, it'll get annoying enough for them to announce their plays. When it's your opponent's turn, set your hand down, they die on top, to indicate the number of cards in your hand. That way, your full attention is devoted to watching them play. See, I don't know about like those anti-cheat strats, because my idea on anti-cheat strats is knowing the cheating, like knowing when you're getting cut stacked against, which is something we talked about with Michael Pram a lot. Knowing when they're trying to distract you or manipulate cards or cup or do all those other things, but the strats to preserve your mental capacity to observe their cheating, such as just putting the die down like that. Often if a cheater realizes you're watching intently, they will ask cards in your hand to distract you. With this method, you never need to look away, and then you just take a look at the die. Just be like, look at the die, it's that many cards. And see, that's another, like, it's those little things where you say, what's that card on your bench, or what does that Pokemon do, or cards in hand, while they're, like, running through, which is also weird, because in Pokemon, do you need to know the opponent's cards in hand on your turn, because it's a non-interactive game, unlike Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic? Like, sure, you can ask, but that also seems like if someone ever does that to you, or has done that to you, just be like, oh, the dude's trying to cheat. Keep accurate count of cards in hand. Most players fidget with their hands the entire game. Consistently ask how many they have. Like most players fidget with their hand the entire game. Consistently ask how many cards they have. Hand shuffling is to throw you off the count of cards. I love silence is violence. Going to use that. Very true. If I can't help, I don't know there's an issue. Being a single judge at a 40-person tournament is difficult. Regional judges, 100,000 people, they get spread quite thin. Player asks what a card does, pass it to them, and continue watching them. Don't look down to read it, especially such an on-meta card. Even the judge is like, Radiant Charizard, bro, was cheating. Notes, notes, notes. Can't do it on your phone, but a notepad and pen will suffice. They help immensely when resetting the board state. Also, I believe the correct response to when I hate when people say I'm cheating, you say, then don't, and walk away. And then, see, that has the extra social thing, because what happens is you're going to take an assault, but that's a disqualification and a ban. So at least, like, even though you can't undo the previous game disqualification, you can force a DQ by upsetting them and walking away. Yeah, this dude had the same hint. Legal to write notes as soon as the match starts. You can't go into the match with pre-written notes, but you can write the opponent's actions down on a notepad. Read the rule book for this exact wording, but your notes also have to be easy to read, no quick hand or coded language. Most notes must also be public knowledge between both players, meaning you can say things like he played quick ball for Palkia V turn 2, but not he played quick ball for Palkia V turn 2. He should have 4 quick ball left and maybe a Palkia V star in his hand. So yeah, like, don't put your personal information, just like the actual actions of the game. Cool. There we go, guys. Cheating in Pokemon.